What kind of got you writing Wish You Were Here? I mean, what kind of got you actually sitting down and constructing this?
What, the song Wish You Were Here?
Well, a whole album.
Oh,
It's
well,
like
the whole album was a kind of nightmare to put together, because Dave and I were already absolutely at loggerheads by then, and he had one whole idea about it, of what it was going to be like, and I had a whole other idea. I'm happy to say my idea won in the end, and so there was some, other stuff that got onto animals later, like raving and drooling and things. But I don't know. It seemed to me, when we were making that record, in the aftermath of the enormous success of Dark Side of the Moon, that, in a way, I sort of knew that really we were over as far as the Band of Brothers notion of a pop group was concerned. We just weren't anymore, and we were never going to be that again. And so I was mourning that loss, as well as the loss of Syd as a friend and as a colleague. And so I guess, lyrically, that's what I'm expressing in that thing. And I mean, I was on tour in the States last year and the year before, and I'm going to South America next spring, and I'm touring Europe next summer. And with my band now, I do Shine On and Wish You Were Here. And when I'm singing, Shine On, Syd's right there all the time, obviously, because, the song is just absolutely about him. And it's a really good song. It describes how I experienced his disintegration, and it describes as well the great desire I had then and still have now, and the passion I have to celebrate him and his talent and his humanity, and to express the love that I have for him.
The Wall. Looking at the film, The Wall, there are a couple of moments where you just described one, which is so uncannily reminiscent of Syd. And there's one where Pink shaves his eyebrows. Now I understand that Syd shaves his eyebrows, or has done, and
he shaved everything.
Yeah.
Geldof wouldn't do that. He refused to shave his head.
But
fuck off. I'm not fucking shaving my head for you or anybody else, Waters. Syd was the famous day when Syd came to the Wish You Were Here sessions. He was shaved, I mean, I had no idea who he was for a long time, and neither did anybody else, I didn't think, for a while.
Just ask you about that. Was that the last time you saw him, actually?
Yeah. No, I saw him again once in Harrods. I was in Harrods, I don't know, shopping, and I saw Syd.
Did he recognise you?
I don't think he saw me. I saw him. He had his brown paper bag. He was buying sweets. Because I think he just lived on sweets. He used to live in
Chelsea Cloisters, was it?
No, before that he lived in the Hilton Hotel for a long time. He had sort of suite of rooms and stuff where he would sit and eat. So he spent, far too much of his money doing that, and then he eventually moved from there. That's the last time I saw him.
Just going back to the wall, that were you saying in that it's almost like this, it could have happened to you. You had similar kind of experiences in life to some extent, with fathers dying young and the same kind of education. And Was it like almost like for the grace of God, there go I? You know, the sort of closeness of madness.
Well, not. Yeah, maybe. You know, funnily enough, whilst making Wish You Were Here, was it? Yeah, it was sort of during the making of Wish You Were Here, or around that time, that I split up with my first wife. And I remember in the canteen downstairs here at Abbey Road, having a nervous breakdown. I think that's the only way I can describe it. But it was very, very short-lived. But it was like I was sitting at the table downstairs, having something to eat, in a bad way. And suddenly everything telescoped. Everything went down the other end of a telescope. It all just went, all the everything. And I thought, fuck me, I'm going mad. This is what it must be like. You know, suddenly reality's changed completely. And I remember I got up from the table and walked out of the room and walked up the stairs and went into number 3 where we were working, and sat down at the piano and started playing the piano. And over a period of about 5 minutes, I suppose, it came back. Reality came back to me. You know, my hands came back to the right size, and my whatever. Actually, the hand thing, you know, my hands felt like 2 balloons. That's from being delirious as a child. But this like everything receding. There is no pain, you are receding. It happened to me, and it came back slowly as I sat and played at the piano. But I remember thinking, good God, you know, this is a fine line I'm walking here, because something happened in my brain then that was very odd and frightened me. It frightened the life out of me. I knew a man who died a few years ago. He was my age, maybe a year older. And his name was Philip Hayward, and he was a lovely man. I used to play golf with him a lot. And every time we played golf, at some point during the round, I would feel a hand on my arm or something like that, and I'd turn around, it'd be Philip, and he'd be looking at me, and he'd say, "We are lucky, you know." And he died suddenly of a heart attack a few years ago, in his mid-50s or whatever, but I've never forgotten that, you know. And when I think about Syd, I at least think that, you know, we are lucky, and we have to live every life as fully and completely as we can, in the light of the fact that it can all go at any minute just like that. Or whether it's something here that happens or you get run over by a bus, it doesn't matter. But, you know, the moment is precious. And I mean, that sounds stupid to say. It's so obvious, and yet it's so easy not to live the moments of our life, just to go through motions and, you know, to get into a kind of a routine and not actually be aware of the fact that, you know, life is good.
There's a kind of a anger in some of that music, which
okay, well, in the Wall.
In the Wall, yeah, and in Dark Side of the Moon. I mean,
yeah,
almost like it's well, you're angry that this happened to Syd, but you're also angry at things that happened to you in your life.
Yeah.
But it's a very powerful emotional anger in there.
Well, and in consequence, it's cathartic and therapeutic. You know, when shit happens, it's important to get angry about it and to release the anger in whatever way that you can. I think we English is, you know, hanging on in quiet desperation. It is a peculiarly English disease that we go, oh, something shitty just happened, I better try and pretend it didn't, you know, or at least, you know, not show anybody that I'm bothered, you know. So we all sit on our hands, and not all, but it's a tendency that I have had through my life, notwithstanding that stuff, to not, you know, to not show my true feelings, on the grounds that, you know, I've since discovered that it's really on the grounds that I may be rejected. If I show my feelings, I will be rejected, because I will be unacceptable. That's been my notion, is that that I can't believe that I could still be loved if I showed how I really felt about things. So maybe that's part of the reason that a lot of it's gone into songs.
Is it one of the reasons why your albums are so successful, in that they do strike that an unusual kind of emotional chord, really?
I'm sure it is, yeah. You know, it's like after Dark Side of the Moon was successful in the early days, people would say, why do you think it is? And, you know, people continue answer that, to ask that. And I'm sure that's the reason, you know. And if you ask Rick, I'm sure he'll still tell you he has no idea. You know, because he can't allow the fact that it might be something to do with what the record's about. But I think it is. I mean, obviously, Dark Side of the Moon is quite compelling musically, you know, and it's got some terrific music on it, to which Rick contributed greatly, I have to say. But, you know, in a way, I think that the shape of the thing and also the sound of the music and what it is actually springs. The wellspring is the expression of the emotion which is actually in the lyric. And it, you know, it's funny you should say that, because there's something, and maybe I learnt this from Syd. There's something about breathe, breathe in the air, don't be afraid to care, you know, leave but don't leave me, which is so simplistic and sort of puerile that it would be very easy to write it down on a piece of paper and then immediately crumble it up and throw it in the bin because you'll be laughed at, you know. And maybe I learnt from Syd that it's really important that you don't throw that stuff in the bin, that you keep it, that kind of almost the childish expression of feeling is the important bit, and all the embellishment that goes on around it is, you know, is secondary to that, this is how I feel now, in a few words, however laughable it may seem.
Yeah, that's a very strong Syd characteristic, isn't it, really?
Very, yeah.
I think Peter Jenner was describing how he wrote Vegetable Man, and it was literally kind of, okay, I'm feeling like this now, today.
Did he?
Yeah.
I was never aware of him writing Vegetable Man. But, you know, when he came in with it, in Yellow Shoes, I get the blues, and my plastic, as I walk the street with my plastic feet and my blue, something makes me feel good. There's a kind of a stink about, what is it? Kind of a stink about red velvet. I can't remember the words exactly. But yeah, I can just see him doing that.
It's kind of, this is me. This is how I am today. You know, this is how I feel.
Me. And all the lot, it's what I've got, it's what you see, it must be me, Vegetable Man. Yeah.
So you've carried that kind of spirit. I mean, I can see that's very clear in some of the lyrics. Dark Side of the Moon. The very simple kind of, they're kind of gut wrenching because they're so.
Well, it's a, you know, in a way, it's a new English tradition from the early '60s, from the Beatles, really. You know, when the Beatles almost single-handedly wrenched, and Syd was a huge Beatles fan, and it feels as if Lennon and McCartney single-handedly wrenched the power of the pen from Tin Pan Alley and brought it home to the lads, you know, or to the real feelings, so that suddenly we were given permission, because of their enormous success, to write from our own experience, you know, and to not no longer be subjugated to the world of the publishing company and the whatever, but just say, no, this is how I feel. Boom, I paint what I see. End of story. And I think maybe before that, that had been reserved for very few writers, since, of course, you know, the early days of the blues, you know, when they were painting what they saw too, but then it got subverted in a way, songwriting that is, and, you know, and we had quite a few years of sort of pop, and only that, and of course that still exists now, but the singer-songwriter, I think, was sort of born from in the early 60s. I'm probably quite wrong. I'm not really know about these things. That's how it felt to me, anyway.
No, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah, it's the songs. I mean, your body of work is very much is wrestling with very important kind of personal social issues, which are not a lot of songs are actually.
Well, I'm still wrestling, and I'm in the middle of a new album which I'm working on this year, and so
You've got to go off and do it.
the songs are still coming. I better go back to work
Should,
on
actually,
that
yes.
happy note.